I'm going to announce our next panel. We know that family is the key, most important factor for most people who are returning from prisoner jail in getting themselves restabilized. So we have a panel on family reunification, family strengthening, and accessing resources. We have our wonderful panelists, Pamela Machombo from Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling, Kimberly Murphy from A Better Way, Tylani Wilson from Project What, Brittany Stonesifer from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and our own Dominique Taylor from Root and Rebound. With that, and we will be moderated by Sonia Tonneson, our Deputy Director from Root and Rebound. So let's give it up for our family panel.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Can everyone hear me all the way to the back? I need someone in front of the window to be waving at me. You can hear me. Okay. So could everyone in unison please say the name of the event that we are at today? Out loud.
Empowerment Summit.
Keep going. Empowerment Summit.
For the incarcerated and families.
Yes. And what was that last word?
Families.
Families. Okay. Families. So that is one of the big reasons we are all here together today, and that is the focus of this panel. So in my humble opinion, I think it may be the most important, one of the best panels of the entire event. And we have people who have been working in this field and have personal experience with these issues for longer than I have been alive with us today. So the collective wisdom up in front of you is incredible and powerful. So I'm excited to get started. So thank you, Emily, for all of the announcements. My name is Sonia again. I will be your flight attendant for the next hour. You'll hear very little from me and a lot from them. So I'm going to just begin by letting you know who's up here, a little bit more about their backgrounds. They've asked me to introduce their bios first. So to my left, to you all, to my immediate right, is Pamela Machombo. Ms. Machombo is with the Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling and also representing the Parent Caregiver Advisory Group of the Alameda County Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership today. And Pamela has been in the field of mental health for over 25 years. She holds a Master's of Arts in Clinical Psychology from the Wright Institute in Berkeley. She is the clinical case manager at the Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling, and her specialty is working with families in crisis by coordinating resources and community services. She also engages youth and their families to identify their needs and assist them in getting back on track. She serves on the Alameda County Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Commission of the Alameda County Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership, ACIP, a work group called At the Time of Arrest. And she is a member, as I mentioned, of PCAG, the Parent Caregiver Advisory Group that advises that work group. Pamela is also, very important, a wife, mother of 4, and grandmother of 5. So if you could all please welcome Pamela. Thank you for being here. And to her left, your right, if you're looking at us, Kimberly Murphy from A Better Way. Kimberly has dedicated over 20 years to supporting and advocating for at-risk children, adolescents, and families from culturally, socioeconomically, and ethnically diverse backgrounds. She has worked with A Better Way for 2.5 years as their program director and carries forward their mission to empower children and their families. She is a single mother of 4 children, and shortly after the birth of her 4th child, their father was sentenced to a 33-year sentence in the California penal system. During attempts to navigate the justice system with little to no support, she found maintaining a relationship between her children and their father was nearly impossible. It was at that time that Kimberly realized the need for support to children with incarcerated parents and to the parent caregiver. So she came to work at A Better Way and learned of the impact of her voice when she became a part of the Alameda County Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership, or ACIP, and is now a co-facilitator of its Parent Caregiver Advisory Group. So please join me in welcoming Kimberly. We also have a very special guest from Project What. This is Taylani Wilson. She is 17 years old and a senior right now at Castro Valley High School. I think our youngest panelist of the two-day event, but she's going to hold it down, trust me. She has been with Project What since 2013. She's a peer mentor there. And she wants people to know that being the child of an incarcerated parent just made her stronger and more determined to be great in her life. So please join me in welcoming Taylani. Okay, I hope I don't butcher your last name. All right, to her left, Brittany Stone-Cipher. I said it, okay. She is with Legal Services for Prisoners with Children. Also, all of these organizations have resource tables at the back, by the way, so please check them out. Brittany is a staff attorney with Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, has been there since March 2014. Originally from Hawaii, she is a graduate of Evergreen State College, where she focused on race, class, and gender studies. She attended UC Hastings College of Law, where she specialized in civil rights and international human rights law. She currently co-teaches the Lifelines Family Law class as part of LSPC's Family Unity Project, which advocates for reforms to systems of court-ordered debt, provides reentry legal assistance, and coordinates LSPC's interns and volunteers. Please welcome Brittany with me. And last but not least, my office mate, Dominic Taylor. He is a staff attorney with Root and Rebound. He received his JD from Washington and Lee University School of Law. He interned at the Neighborhood Defender Service of Harlem in New York, the Federal Public Defender in Richmond, Virginia, and the Supreme Court of Virginia. After graduating from law school, he worked with the San Diego County Public Defender's Office, where he represented people who had been charged with misdemeanors there. And now, as an attorney with Root and Rebound, he helped us draft the very first version of the Roadmap to Reentry Guide, helped us to draft the very first ever Family and Children Toolkit, which he'll be talking about more today, and was also helping us to put on the very first Empowerment Summit. So he helped us put through a lot of firsts. So welcome, Dom. Okay, did I do it justice? Anything you guys want to add? Okay, cool. So the first question I want to open up to everyone, so maybe we'll just start with Pamela and then go down the line. Why did you feel passionate about being here today when you have a million other things to do? Why did you say, yes, I want to come today to talk about family reunification, strengthening, and resources? And with that, what is one piece of insight or wisdom about getting support that you'd like to share with everyone today who might be going through that process or supporting other people who are navigating that?
So I'd just like to add to my bio that it wasn't mentioned that my eldest son was incarcerated, so I am personally impacted. And my passion was brought on from that because while he was impacted or incarcerated, I actually became the guardian of my grandson, his only son. And through that guardianship process, I needed to know what to do, how to get him to talk to his dad or his dad to talk to him, and the visitation, and how important that was for that communication process to take place. So I had to make it happen. And that's where my passion is in my heart, but also with my work as a clinical case manager. I'm always speaking with parents or grandparents that come in with children for family therapy, and no one's asking the question, where's mom? Where's dad? Why do you have guardianship? That question isn't asked on our form, and that question wasn't, I brought it up to the forefront just to find out for my own concern. And then I had resources that I wanted to share with those parents and guardians, because when I was searching, that was the hardest thing for me, to find information on how to help me, where to get the support. And so I wanted to share with them how I got support. Is that good?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Do you want to add, Kimberly?
I think first, initially, I became passionate about this work because of the work that I do in the community with families. But really, my passion is because I'm one of these families. My children struggled, when their father was initially arrested and sentenced, and they really had a hard time adjusting to not having him around after he had been, a large part of their upbringing, and I really had nowhere to turn. I didn't have any resources that I knew about prior to becoming employed with A Better Way, and I really reached out to the schools. You know, I made sure my children had mental health services, and I really wanted other parents to know, or caregivers to know that are caring for children while the other parent is incarcerated, that you're not by yourself. You know, that you have, there's resources out there that can help you. There's groups that you can join that can support you, like PCAG, like ASIP. And if I had something like that in the very beginning, I think that this road would have been a little bit easier for me and for my children. And so that's really where my passion kind of lies. And I think if I had one piece of wisdom, it would be to just communicate, communicate with your children, be honest with them about where that parent is, really try and stay connected to the person that's incarcerated. You have to be that in-between bridge for that other parent and your children. So.
Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. So my passion also is because I'm a child of an incarcerated parent. So that's pretty much where it comes from. And also being in Project What, being around other peers who have similar experiences to me and feeling like they had lack of resources, or their parents had lack of resources, which affected their relationship. And for me, my dad was incarcerated for 7 years. He recently got out last year, but with him getting out, it's been really hard for him in general just to get a job, to deal with being outside, in the real world, and dealing with other people's authority and stuff. That's really hard for him. And also our relationship, because it's just different, since I had to pretty much grow without him and learn how to do a lot of stuff without him. He doesn't like that I'm just so independent. So I definitely feel like I want to speak to I feel like it's important to get counseling while they're still in there, before they get out, with them just by themselves, so they can kind of work out some of the problems that they're dealing with. And it's also family counseling together, so when it gets out, it's not such a big block between them. And yeah, also because I have 6 brothers and sisters on my dad's side, and when he went away, pretty much our whole family fell apart because they all had different moms. So he was kind of what brought us together. So also dealing with that, our siblings, having siblings and not being able to talk to them since we don't share the same mom. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And I also have a formerly incarcerated sibling. My brother was incarcerated. But more broadly than that, I think what attracted me to doing this kind of legal work is that I've always had a really strong sense of justice, and I've always taken it really personally to see rampant injustice in the world. And I think, nowhere is it more obvious in our backyard that we live in an unjust society than the fact that mass incarceration is so widespread. And I think you can see that the impact of that most acutely through how it affects families, because it's not just the person doing time that's harmed by incarceration, it's entire families and communities. So I think that's a really important part of the equation. And so the work that I do at LSPC, as Sonia mentioned, includes the Lifelines Family Law class. So we go into women's prisons and teach about how to understand the family law systems in California and how to advocate for your rights. Because unfortunately there's not a lot of resources out there, and this is something that people deserve to know about and be able to stand up for their rights as parents.
And definitely just echoing what Brittany just said, I mean, we know so much about how mass incarceration impacts our communities, how it impacts individuals going through the system. And through a lot of my career, I've spent time representing individuals, whether it was working as a public defender or actually spent time down in the state of Alabama doing death penalty appeals on the behalf of an individual. I think the part that sort of gets overlooked, unfortunately, sometimes is the family aspect. About 80% of folks coming home from prison or jail expect to come home to a family member or close loved one who will be helping them to navigate the process. And as a reentry attorney, I think I'd be really remiss to not acknowledge the fact that by helping our clients to get through the barriers that they're facing, we're also helping their family, and their family's going to be helping them as well. So what we're trying to do at Root and Rebound through Family and Children Initiative is to really holistically look at the needs of folks who are in reentry and look at the needs of their family and see how we can do the best thing for them individually and the best thing for their family. So I'm definitely here to be talking about on this panel and brainstorming solutions.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Yes, definitely clap. So one of the things that, this wasn't a question we discussed, but several of you just mentioned it, and it came up on the previous panel, was about counseling and trauma. And Jason Bell said, but who you're talking to matters a lot too, right? You can offer the services. So I'm interested, from your perspective, what are the services that you've seen be really successful? Why is counseling important? And also, how can someone figure out if they're in a counseling situation that may not be working from them and find something that might better serve themselves, their families, when you've had a history of incarceration? Because I could imagine, even though I don't have experience, some people might not get it. Even when they're in the field, they're not going to get it, and it might not just be the right place, even though it's not the service, but the place. So do you have any advice for how counseling can be useful, and if it's not helping, other resources that might be better suited or more helpful?
How much time do I have?
Yeah.
I could just say, personally speaking, I find it more engaging with my clients when I reveal a piece of me. I reveal a piece of myself as far as going through the shame, the guilt, the lack of communication, the lack of people not using the right language, not being aware of how hard it is to maintain family while you have a loved one that's incarcerated. But it can be done. I learned this years ago when just trying to improve the relationship with my son. I found Kairos Outside, a prison ministry that instilled in me how important it is to just know that when your loved one is doing time, you're doing time. And not to take that lightly and not to just excuse it, because it is so true. Your heart is there with them every day. And to not let the shame or guilt stop you from asking, stop you from talking, stop you from seeking where you can find some resources, or finding that person that you can click or connect with or engage with that understand whatever your issue is that brought you to therapy or brought you to the group to talk about whatever the situation is. To just know that there are people out there in the world that will engage with you, that aren't there to help make you feel bad, but to help develop your skills and find your strengths and help you connect better with your loved one and demonstrate what real love is, even if you can't physically touch the person, how you can be there for them and support them. So in our agency with my clients, I definitely, when I sense that there's a rigidness or something that's not coming up, it's not coming out, I reveal a piece of me, and then that opens the door. They start flooding and telling me everything because, this lady must understand. She's been there, done that. So that opens that door. And just having therapists that are engaged, even if they don't have the lived experience, to just have the heart to be able to listen, to have the heart to be able to ask the questions without making people feel bad, to have the heart to do a little extra outside of our agency. I step out and see what else is there, because I'm not an expert at everything, and I know some things are beyond my scope of practice. So I'm going to go find that agency that can connect with the children of incarcerated parents, or those agencies that can connect with the mothers and fathers and wives and husbands of the incarcerated, and where those resources are, because that's the information that should be shared, and it shouldn't be inhibited. It shouldn't be hard to find, because I had a hard time and I had to put myself out and open up to get it. But it's there, through churches, through organizations, through, just ask. I remember my grandmother as a young girl just telling me, whatever you need, just ask for it. Just ask. Somebody can have an answer for you. So if we can do that, just bury the shame, the stigma, communicate what it is your needs are, you'll find help. It is there.
Do you guys have anything to add, Kimberly? Either one.
Okay. I would just say for me, I do feel like counseling is effective, but all the counselors I've dealt with, which is referring to like school counselors, they weren't the best for me, and I got more counseling with being in Project What. And it wasn't even like formal counseling, just talking to like Alicia or other peers about just similar experiences. And sometimes it's not even about my parent, but half of the time some of the issues do like relate back to having a parent incarcerated. And it's nice to talk to somebody who's also had their parent incarcerated or faced like some type of trauma like that. And also what was said about just having somebody who's like relatable and willing to share some of their personal life, because that does make you want to express how you feel about what's going on with you. But yeah, Project What is working with San Francisco schools to give resources to teachers and counselors about like resources dealing for children of incarcerated parents and how to like talk to them and not using words like felon and other like dehumanizing words when referring to like incarceration.
And I'm just going to echo what Tailani said and also add a couple of resources. I think there's a lot of wisdom in our communities right now, and we should use that. Inside, when we teach our classes, there's women's support groups, and they help teach each other about family law, and it's really amazing to see. But here on the outside, there's SE Justice, and also All of Us or None, which are led by formerly incarcerated people and family members, and it's a great place to help share resources.
I just wanted to add that sometimes, well, from my own personal perspective, is that parents that are raising children when the other parent is incarcerated sometimes can be in autopilot, where they're so busy managing the household and managing the things that are coming up financially for them that, and their children are struggling. And so when I know in my experience with my youngest child was 4 when his father was incarcerated, that I utilized, private insurance in order to get therapy for him, because the schools, that was a challenge and a fight with where, he was acting out, he would leave school or he would have meltdowns. And instead of attributing that to the trauma and the loss of his father not being in the home or his father not being around to provide that support that he had, it was more attributed to his mental health, or, he had ADHD, he needs to be on medication, and we were going that route instead of looking at what is really the issue here. The issue is really that this child has trauma, and this child is struggling in dealing with a loss, a true loss, and so I felt like giving him outside therapy was the best for him, and helped him process his feelings and helped him, manage his own emotions in the classroom and also at home. School therapy was also offered, but it was more around the stigma of everybody knows you're in counseling at school, and so I'm not going to go in that door because everybody knows then that I'm getting therapy. So that's why the outside therapy was a better choice.
That's really helpful. Thank you all. And then I wanted to back that up with a question about talking about this with kids. And there's different perspectives here from grandparents, from the parental perspective, from being a child yourself in this situation. Any strategies you've discovered along the way that worked or didn't work that you can share, and a little bit maybe why, and yeah.
Well, for my grandson, he wasn't ready to speak openly about missing his father or his father being incarcerated. So I was his voice mainly. We talked about it. I would ask the right questions to help to engage him to talk to me. So he was blessed in that way to have me. But it is a struggle to get kids to talk about it, or to be able to express that they're longing for their parent that's not home. So through various strategies, through various exercises, through hearing other stories, and I direct my clients to, like I said, Project What, and then there's a camp for the younger kids, Project Avery, where everyone is impacted by incarcerated there. So when I started scooching my grandson into the places he needed to be because everyone there was in the same boat as you. So he finally opened up. He finally did attend some groups, and he did involve himself in the youth court, which was a place where he could talk about why he was having troubles now. You know, what did he miss? So he began to slowly open up. But I had to be able to just stay at it, keep introducing. When the one didn't work, find another one, but just keep it on the forefront of our conversations at dinner, when we're riding in the car, to just let him know you're not the only one in the world whose father's incarcerated. So let's focus on when he comes out, and what are we going to do? How we're going to improve that relationship? How are you guys going to get back those years that were missed? So we started talking and planning on those things. And then once I talked about it, I backed away. So a lot of times it's planting the seed and letting it grow. So it doesn't happen in the time I wanted it to happen, but now they have a great relationship. But at the time it was a struggle. So I could just say persevere, communicate, because it's not easy, and sometimes you have to do it 20, 30 times before you get a result. But to just be patient, keep listening, keep talking, keep finding resources. She raised her hand. Is there questions?
Oh, yeah, we're going to open it up to questions
Oh.
in a bit. So yeah, don't forget it, okay? Write it down, or yeah. Do you want to add anyone else about? And we've been told to talk closer to the mic a bit. But the question again is about strategies about talking with kids about a parent being incarcerated or a family member being incarcerated, and things that worked and didn't work.
Well, I mean, being honest, I think that's the best strategy that you can have with kids. You know, our household has family talks. So we have family conversations. So when something comes up in our household, I get everybody together and we talk about it, or I let them know something that's about to happen. So this was like nothing different for them in that way of how I communicated to them. You know, just calling everybody downstairs and saying, I need to talk to you. This is something that's very important, because they weren't aware that their father had been arrested. And I had to be very thoughtful in how I, brought it to them, because I know that this is going to be on the internet. It was in the newspapers, it was on the internet, and so their friends would have access to their personal lives through reading about it. And so I wanted them to hear it from me first, instead of hearing it from a friend that your dad is in jail, or, so I just called everybody downstairs, said, your father was arrested, and, he made a mistake. He didn't do good thinking the way that we talk in our household, and that decision has caused him not to be with us. That I will take you to visit him, that I will accept his phone calls, that we will send packages at that time you could to him, and we will do the best we can to make sure that you're connected to your father. And we did that. I made sure that they went to see him as soon as they were able to. And my youngest one is now 16, and still, they still visit, they still maintain their relationship with him. And I feel like being honest at the very beginning really set precedence for how their relationship would unfold. And I did not want to be the reason of why they did not have a relationship with him, because I know that it's my job to make sure that they stay connected to him, because no one else is going to do it. No matter what my feelings were for him, no matter what our relationship was, but I knew that I had to be that person that kept them connected.
Okay, I would say when somebody talks to me about my dad's incarceration, or I'm telling somebody about my dad's incarceration, I don't want pity, and I don't want people to be like, oh, I'm so sorry, and stuff like that, because it's really nothing that they could have done. And also I just feel like it's kind of ungenuine. I feel like that's just the first thing somebody says when you tell them something sad or traumatic. And I also, language, I'm big on using felon or just derogatory terms that would just dehumanize my dad, because at the end of the day he still is a human, and his incarceration doesn't definitely define him or me. So I do feel like when you're talking to somebody, a child, about their parents' incarceration or their incarceration of a loved one, just be careful in what type of language, and don't make them seem like they're a victim, because they're not. Like, yeah. And I know, oh dang, I lost it. Oh, I also would say I didn't really feel like it was an issue until joining Project What, or I wouldn't say issue, but I didn't really have any feelings towards it until joining Project What and realizing that this is something that I shouldn't be dealing with, and it's not normal. Because I just thought it was normal. I was from a community where pretty much all my friends had a parent that was incarcerated, but we never just talked about it and had conversations about it. And not until Project What I realized it really affected me, and it affected my schoolwork, and that's why I was just so my heads were always in books, and I really didn't want to enjoy anything because my dad wasn't there to enjoy it with me. So I definitely feel like Project What helped me know those feelings and then deal with them.
It's really great advice. Thank you guys for sharing. Really appreciate it. And I wanted to, before we, I think, move into questions in just a moment, because it seems like there's a lot. Sometimes one of the challenges that can come up is also the legal process. We talked a bit about this yesterday, that when a parent is coming home, it may not just be as simple as talking with the family who's been the caregiver, but there may have been legal things that happen while they were away. So I thought Brittany and Dom, if you wanted to say anything about what resources are out there for parents who are coming home and trying to navigate the legal issues that could be coming up around their parental rights, or reunifying, or contacting their children or their family, any resources or information.
Sure, yeah. So LSPC publishes a lot of self-help legal manuals related to family law, designed specifically to help people know what their rights are as parents. We answer prisoners' letters, and sadly, we get this question a lot of the time. I'm incarcerated. Do I still have rights as a parent? And it breaks my heart, because of course you do. You're still a parent, and you still are a good parent, and you love your child, and you deserve your rights as a parent. So the best piece of advice I can give is to have a plan, and to be in communication with your community on the outside. If you're a parent who's locked up, that's your most important resource, is being in good communication with the caregiver. If you can, being in a positive relationship with the caregiver. And reunifying is going to be with your child when you get out is going to be much easier if you are in communication with your child while you're incarcerated, if you're building that relationship with the caregiver. And I could get into lots of the details about the different courts, but I'm not going to do that right now. But if you set yourself up to have that constant relationship with your child, it's going to be a lot easier. And also, sadly, sometimes people, they get out and they're like, I'm just going to go pick up my baby, and things are going to be fine. It's just going to go right back to usual. There's often a transition period where your child has to get used to you being back in the community again. The caregiver needs to know that there's going to be a smooth transition for the child. So setting up that plan in advance. So maybe having weekend visits, and then getting that to be every other day, or just building up that relationship over time, I think is the best way to make it a successful reunification for everyone involved.
And I'd say that, just echoing what Brittany said, absolutely communication. I think particularly, we really believe that reentry begins at the time of arrest. From that point forward, there's always steps you can be taking to begin reunifying with your family, to begin planning for housing and all the other issues that pop up. And 95% of folks come home. Only 5% of people die in prison. 95% of folks are coming home, and they all oftentimes have a lot of families, friends, loved ones who they'll be going back to. So we have a couple of resources to really help facilitate communication. Our team of staff attorneys, Sonia, Emily, and Casey, and myself, we've been traveling up and down California over the last 3 years, doing a lot of community trainings. We go to prisons, we go to jails, we do trainings in rural areas, trainings in cities, and at the end of them, we always open them up to questions. And the number one question we get, it isn't specifically, how do I get housing, how do I get an ID? It's simply, where do I begin? I got my kids back home. Where do we start? My brother's coming home in 6 months, or he has his parole hearing coming up. Where do we begin? So taking that feedback into mind, we came up with a resource, and we actually have it on hand today. It's called the Family and Children Toolkit. And what this is it's a guide that it helps you as a family member or a loved one of somebody in reentry, and your loved one who's coming home, whether they're currently incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, navigating the process already. It's a resource designed to facilitate communication and help answer that critical question, where do we start? So we have a lot of checklists, details, resources, referrals, and then we actually have a one-of-a-kind reentry plan in it. It's 13 pages I actually have a copy. This is what it looks like, but in the back of this, there's a little 13-page reentry plan that you can tear out, share with your loved one. If they're currently incarcerated, mail some pages to them, or Root and Rebound can ship them a copy. But what this reentry plan does is it allows you to plan for their reentry. How do we get them housing? How do we get ID? How do we get them set up with community college and four-year college if that's what they're interested in? But it also has a lot of information about how do we begin the process of talking about you coming home? How do we discuss triggers? How do we discuss the fact that you've been down for 10 years and I've changed? So we have a lot of that information, but 100%, I think the most critical thing is definitely open, honest communication, even when it's difficult, even when it hurts. And also, just lastly, always respecting the other person's point of view, because everybody's been experiencing incarceration, everybody's been experiencing reentry. It just looks different for the family members and for folks who are coming home themselves.
Awesome. Oh yeah, go ahead, please add. Thank you.
And one thing I thought of is you can be your own best resource by keeping really good records. If even if you can't be in communication with your child, because I know there's a gap between legal rights and reality sometimes. If you don't have custody rights, if someone else is not letting you speak to your child, you can write letters and keep them and say, I couldn't send this to you at the time, but I kept it and I was thinking of you, and this is what I wanted to say to you at the time. And just keeping a record of like what documents you've sent to who and when you did it's going to be really valuable later on.
Okay, thank you guys so much. I'm blown away by the wisdom on this panel, and before we wrap up, I want to have everyone have the chance after questions just to say, like, the organization you're with, who do you need to come to you, right? Who do you want, who's your call to say come to us, and what kinds of things you can provide, or who you're looking for, or if there's events, any services, resources, or needs that you have. I'd love to wrap up with that, but first, I know we have a lot of questions. I think Valentina, again, is with the mic, so yeah, feel free to ask questions now. We have some time. Thank you all.
I'm Sandra, and I'm what you call a dual diagnosis person, meaning that I have mental issues and drug issues. I used to teach school. I had 2 teacher credentials and stuff, and I went to jail for a felony for a violent offense. And I had my records expunged and stuff, and I haven't been in trouble in a while, but what I'm at a point where I'm like kind of lost. What do I do now, And I also deal with the guilt, and the shame of kind of like wrecking my life, and also the fear that if I do get a job, are my ex-addict friends going to call my job and stuff. So what kind of resources or advice would you have for me?
Thank you for your question. Yeah, if anyone wants to help answer, and I'll say one thing about the guilt and the shame, that it doesn't have to be here, because this whole room are people who love you and are glad you're here. So thank you for sharing that, and I'd love to hear what the panelists have to say.
I think it's great that you were able to clean up your record. I think that helps a lot with getting a job, one of the things that you mentioned. I think there'll be more panels this afternoon about that, but if you get your record expunged, you don't have to say that you have those convictions on a job application for almost most job applications. And I think just building community, if you feel comfortable talking about it, obviously there's a lot of people here today. As Sonia said, there doesn't have to be a stigma, but it's just kind of one step at a time.
She needs a consult.
Yes. Yeah, so I will say from 1 to 4 today, actually, we're doing legal meetings in the back patio. So you're welcome to sign up with one, and the Root and Rebound attorneys, so their expertise is on how a criminal record impacts other areas of life and how to navigate that. So we have attorneys here who will do confidential one-on-one meetings about more of the legal questions. So I definitely would encourage you to sign up for that and come meet with us. Yeah, and then what about other resources that you all would suggest as a parent who's
Well,
wondering about these
as far as the Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling, we're limited to youth, that aren't over 18. But when those families are involving youth that are under 18, we're in the process right now of building some great capacity to be able to address some questions just like that with younger kids, with families that are coming out. How do we reunite? How do we come together? What's the best group? How do we manage the child's anger? How do we set up a process where the parent comes home and the child, they begin to talk from this day and not going back 10 years from that life you've missed? But we are setting up those groups for the grandparents, those caregivers, the children that are able to speak from 8 to 18 about their feelings and what needs to be said and how do we repair this relationship and where do we go from here to just start from this day forward. So at the Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling, please direct all the reentry families to come there to begin to learn how to start that process and that conversation when they have children, how to reunite that family and get back on board with the resources and the routines of raising a family. It's hard enough, but then when you add incarceration to it or absence of time to it, it really is complicated, and it always has, a win-win situation when you're really engaging and when you really seek out the help to have that third-party intervention of a case manager or a therapist to facilitate the conversations that need to happen.
And I think, just speaking to the employment aspect of your question, Sandra, this afternoon actually we have 2 panels focused on employment. One's going to be about finding a good permanent long-term job, and then the second one, I think starting at 1:45, we're actually going to have a couple of my colleagues, an attorney, Eva, from Legal Services for Prisoners with Children, and then a team of attorneys from East Bay Community Law Center and their Clean Slate Clinic, and they're going to be talking about what your rights are during the employment process as somebody with a record, how to go about cleaning up your record, and they're also specifically going to talk about licensing barriers and restrictions and how you can appeal licensing board decisions. So definitely stick around for that. And also Root and Rebound, every single Friday of the year from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., we shut down our office and we have a reentry legal hotline. So know that you're never alone if you're looking for any reentry related questions. Any Friday, just feel free to give us a call. Even for currently incarcerated folks, we pay for collect calls. So always reach out with any reentry related question. Our office is shut down. We have our whole team of attorneys, volunteers, and law clerks manning the phones and answering all questions and sending out resources. So always feel free to call us.
And also just to, sorry.
Go ahead.
So there's a movement called Ban the Box, which is broadly aimed at ending the discriminatory consequences that having a conviction can have, including getting employment. And so I think that'll be talked about more this afternoon. But I think that a powerful way to heal from the trauma of incarceration is to take that trauma and to turn it into movement for change. And so a big core philosophy of LSPC is having people who are directly impacted leading the work that we do and centered in the work that we're doing. So to that end, we're having an event, so I'm going to plug that. Quest for Democracy, our annual Quest for Democracy Advocacy Day on May 7th and 8th up in Sacramento. And so we'll be bringing hundreds of formerly incarcerated people and family members up to Sacramento doing a lobby training, talking about bills, including a statewide Ban the Box bill, and then going around and meeting with staffers from every single legislator's office so they can hear what's important to our communities.
So I also have a 16-year-old son, and I guess what I want to ask you, the relationship you have with your father, with the relationship you're having with you and your father, as a mom, I'm finding myself in that same type of relationship with my son. Not so much my older children, but my son in particular, because he's still like my minor child. And I'm finding myself having these conversations with him, but I'm also finding that I'm still in the role of being a mother. And what I need to know is, how did you speak to your father without him interfering with what you really feel?
That's a hard question to answer because me and my dad actually really have like a lot of communication problems, mainly because he just kind of doesn't accept how I feel. But what helps like start those conversations is mainly like I tell him like he hurt my feelings, or it's just something very simple, or I didn't like how he said that, and that kind of how it opens it up. And then also my stepmom is like a mediator for us, so I also do feeling somebody, if you have somebody who's neutral, to kind of be there and just kind of acknowledge that both parties are feeling, their feelings are like valid, that helps. That's what helped me the most, is like having that my stepmom there, because she was agreeing with me, but she was also like pointing out key points that I should understand from my dad's perspective. And then she was also telling my dad to understand some of the ways that I was feeling. So that's the best advice I could get.
I think this was actually for her as well. It was interesting, he said that the number one question they get is, do I still have rights as a parent? And I think the child of somebody who's incarcerated or formerly incarcerated have a right to a parent. It's exactly the opposite. And I can tell you that guys that have done a lot of time in prison have, when they're talking to the fellas, they talk about their children with heart, but they really don't know how to be a father or how to communicate that. So I think it's a learning experience for everybody involved. And Project What is an important step, because when we talk about incarcerated people, we don't normally talk about the family members that were incarcerated with them. Project Roots and Rebound is adding and families to this, and I was very humbled for the opportunity to work in this on this summit. But they have a project down south called Pops the Club, and Pops the Club was just a teacher found out that somebody felt like you, and started talking to other students and found out that 2/3 of her school had incarcerated parents. And so they have a club now. And what's important is your voice goes forward, your club goes forward, your organization goes forward, and insert yourself in this conversation, because you're going to teach your father how to be a father.
And I will say that Taylani is a professional teacher. Project What actually trains, not only do they mentor other young people who are coming into the program, she started when she was 13 years old, so she was one of the youngest members of Project What, so she's been doing it for a long time. But they also train community members. Something interesting I learned from her when we talked before the panel is that often when she speaks on panels, there's like a feeling of wanting to give advice immediately to young people who share their truth, because we see, oh, I'm going into this parental role right away even when someone's telling us their truth. So I think one of the things we can all do too as service providers, as people in the community who care, is realize that we have so much to learn from young people and their experience too, and so that we're not only the givers of help, right? We actually need that too to do our work well. So I think it's really amazing what you do and the other Project What young people and students do in the program. And many of their alumni actually go on to be staff as well too, and so we have them in the room. So, and I know you've been waiting very patiently to ask your question in the green sweater, so thank you.
I am Mariposa. I'm a psychiatrist. I worked in the prison system, and a lot of the guys that I work with, I was assigned to Pelican Bay, the most remote prison up there, and often removed from families. And the number one thing that those guys, that pained them the most was being forgotten, losing connection with their families, and just having meaning And so I think I'm really happy that this, program is here. I wish I had all these resources for these guys to give them hope, to nurture that hope. And I think the idea, Dominic, that you mentioned about planting the seed from the get-go, as a doctor, we always say the treatment plan starts the minute they're admitted to a hospital. And so the treatment plan starts the minute they're admitted to, once they're incarcerated. Because it is that plan that will continue to give them hope day in, day out, so that they do not get caught up in all the politics and things that happen in prison. Granted, sometimes they're there and they have to defend themselves and they get into issues that lead them to isolation. But I think the pre-release planning starts at the very beginning, not toward the end, the 2 months to release, with no connection to their family. And I'm just wondering if, I did tell a psychiatrist, I would see the guys from my San Quentin office doing a video conference up at Pelican Bay. And I'm just wondering, why are we not able to utilize technology to unite families? To provide what Tailani is saying, what would happen, her relationship might have been different with her dad now, had they had some form of, family therapy as he is getting close to his release date. And maybe there wouldn't be so many difficulties, because on release, he's dealing with a lot of different issues. And not just, his family, and you, Tailani, there's so many pressures that he has on his plate. But I'm glad that you have someone that is kind of mediating the terrain here. So I just want to kind of just congratulate you. I think this is amazing resources that I wish I had when I was working in the prison system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll take one last question I see in the back, and then I would love the panelists to just give us in their soundbite, again, the services, the groups that they're part of, who you want to come talk to you after the panel, right? Like, so if you can speak directly to who should come find you after our panel would be good. And then one last question, please.
Listening to what everybody's saying, there's something that's overlooked here. We don't train people with masters in psychology who work with ex-offenders. The population is so large, the state's putting money in it. We need to start looking at training some ex-offenders to in fact be psychologists, because they understand the emotional part of it, and you give them the skills. I am a psychologist, and I teach people how to be substance abuse counselors. One of the things that I've noticed is being a substance abuser does not make you a good counselor. Being a counselor does not make you a good substance abuse counselor. Understanding the dynamics of it does, in fact, give you some tools. I don't think the state would argue with training some people, at whatever sort of criteria they want, who would be able to, in fact, understand the dynamics of family issues and the dynamics of incarceration and how you reintegrate first with self. Because you've got to, in fact, become a different person when you get out of prison than you were in prison. Second, with family, and I'll stop with this. The U.S. military has this problem. Remember, PTSD is talked about in the war. And there are two variables that no one ever talks about. The Carl Vinson, which used to be stationed in Alameda, was steaming to North Korea. It had already been in the ocean 9 months. They're going to be gone another 3 or 4 months. Every time a carrier goes out and is gone for 9 months, it deteriorates the family. When kids get to be 12 or 13, they don't ask their dad, can they go somewhere? They ask their one parent, can they go somewhere? And that's a resource you can look at because it's the same reintegration. But we need to have people who understand incarceration at an intimate level to help people who are getting out.
I I just want to say I agree with you, Dr. Love. And that's why at the Carl B. Matoyer Center for Family Counseling, while we're building this capacity, we're also training our staff to be more observant, to be more in tune with the stories of the families that are coming into our agency, to even ask that question, you know, where is mom, where is dad, and how long has it been since you've seen them, and do you stay in contact with them? So all those things, and to process that anger, process all that time that's been missing, to even talk about it, it's such a big step and a movement, and we've recognized that at our agency. So I just like to ask those families, those mothers, those fathers that are re-entering to please visit our table so we can sign you up. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you're interested in bringing your voice and to policy making and change, I encourage you to join Alameda County Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership, and also if you are a previously incarcerated parent or caregiver that's caring for a child whose parent is incarcerated, please come find me. We also have a table in the back, and you can join our PCAG, Parent Caregiver Advisory Group, which is a group of formerly incarcerated and caregivers, where we work with ACIP to help bring change to policymaking around these issues.
Project What is currently hiring, so we're looking for youth ages 14 through 18, and preferably if they live in Oakland or San Francisco, but we're open to all Alameda County and the San Francisco County. And pretty much the only requirement is to have a parent that was or is incarcerated. But yeah, anybody who works with children from the ages of 14 to 18, you can come to the back and grab some application and flyers.
And I'm happy to talk to anyone who has an incarcerated loved one, whether they're a parent or not, or someone who's re-entering and is a parent and has any questions. But I would also love to talk to anyone who's interested in getting involved in the movement to end mass incarceration, who wants to join us at Quest for Democracy in May. And also, as Sonia mentioned at the beginning, I coordinate our intern program. So if you are interested in interning with us, I know there's a lot of students in the room. We always are looking for people who have lived experience to be in our office and be doing the work.
And I would say we have a lot of materials for family members, for folks who are in reentry themselves. We have a table in the back where you can get our roadmap to reentry guide, a lot of the other educational materials that we put out. Additionally, like as I mentioned earlier, always feel free to call our hotline every single Friday. If your loved one is inside, they can feel free to write us a letter, and we get about 300 letters a week. We respond to every single one of them. So we're always here to help out. And just lastly, echoing the policy reform, just like I think the most powerful sort of experience is folks telling their truth, using their journey to spark change in the world. So Brittany and her colleagues have done amazing work around Ban the Box. At Root and Rebound, we're working on a couple of bills to make sure that folks have access to health care and food benefits from day one, right when they're released. And we're always looking for folks to come up to Sacramento and raise hell with us to spark change. So that's all I got.